You want to speak any language like a native? Imagine walking into a room and everybody thinks you've been speaking this language your whole life.
What?
Sounds impossible, right? I know, but it's not. Stick with me for the next 8 minutes and I will give you 5 powerful tips that will make your accent, confidence, and vocabulary sound 100% native. Let's jump in. So before we get started, we have to address something serious. So before you dive into actually speaking like a native, make sure you have mastered the pronunciation of all of the letter sounds in the language that you are trying to learn. So the first tip is to immerse yourself into the language. You want to do the same thing in your target language. You want to listen to music in the target language. So not only that your ear gets accustomed to the sound of the language, but it also gets accustomed to that intonation and that melody, because every language has its own intonation and melody. Every language has its own rise and fall as you speak. And that's what you're trying to really hone in on, because that's how you will end up sounding like a native speaker. Natives have a natural flow when they speak. Watch those TV shows, watch those movies. The more your brain gets used to the sound, and the more you'll start being able to speak. Tip number 2 is focus on mastering the accent. There are many different accents in a language, so my recommendation to you is to pick an accent. I'm studying the Arabic language, but I've chosen to study the Levantine dialect. The material that I will be taking in will be full of the Levantine dialect. I will find YouTube videos, YouTube teachers, music, TV shows that are in that Levantine dialect that have that accent. And it's important to spend time on the sounds that you don't have in your language, because those are the sounds that will help you sound most like the native speaker. Work on your weak spots so that when you do come further in the language, it all comes together. For example, if you're learning English, you need to practice the TH sound. Work on these tricky spots in your speech and you will automatically sound more authentic. There's a reason why some people are understood and some people are not. The best example for people who speak English is when people from another country come and they ask you for something, but you cannot understand them. They're saying all the right words, but the pronunciation is wrong. Instead of saying cable, they say cable. And the reason for this is because they are using the pronunciation from their language, but the spelling from our language, and which is causing them to make the mistake. This is a lot of issues that language learners run across because they're not understanding why they're not understood. And the reasoning is you have to completely change your way of thinking. You have to forget all the letter sounds in your native language. You have to forget all the letters, all the pronunciation in your native language, and you have to put on a new hat. You have to just imagine yourself becoming a baby again in this language and really, really delve deep into it, master the sounds, master the pronunciation, and actually become a new person in that language. Tip number 3, use phrasal verbs and idioms in your speech. And this is super important because a lot of the time when you are learning from a textbook, you start to realize that when you actually start engaging in conversation with native speakers, that they don't actually talk like that. The best way to find these types of phrases is to watch TV shows and movies. I can't express it enough. You know, watch these TV shows and movies, pick up what they're saying and repeat, repeat, repeat. Using these things in daily conversations will make you sound more fluent and more natural. Tip number 4 is my favorite tip. It is called shadowing. Shadowing is the act of repeating exactly what you hear. So the biggest tip that I can give you is that when you are doing your makeup, when you are on the way to work, or when you're doing anything where you can do something else at the same time, I would suggest that you shadow a native speaker, whether that's from a YouTube video, a movie, a TV show, music. Repeat exactly what they're saying. Not only repeating exactly what they're saying, but how they are saying it. Repeat with that same emotion, repeat with that same intonation, that same rise and fall, because this will help you sound like a native speaker the most. Shadowing has a lot to do with how we learned when we were children. When we were babies, we did not know how to speak. We didn't know how to say anything. We were just sitting there with our head just moving around. And then we finally repeated the things our mothers and fathers and siblings were saying. We repeated it exactly how they were saying it. That's why shadowing is proven to be super successful when trying to sound native in a language. And for crying out loud, speak like you do not know the grammar rules. Grammar rules will leave you so puzzled, annoyed, and just want to give up. And at this point, just forget the grammar rules, especially since you're listening to music and you're watching TV shows. Like, a lot of these things are going to break the grammar rules. You're really trying to focus on speaking and being understood. The more that you take in of the language, the easier it will be to put out in the language, especially if you're not going into it trying to memorize everything, because when it comes down to it and you get face to face with that native speaker, instead of hola, ¿cómo estás? Rolling off the tongue, it'll be like, okay, hi in Spanish is hola, and how are you is adios. Like, it's going to be so unnatural, and the only way for it to become natural for you is to hear it, to see it, to mock it, to repeat it, just like we did when we were children. And then the final tip would be to speak with native speakers. So if you're learning a language that's very popular in your country, for example, my country, Spanish is very popular, so I have a lot of opportunity to speak with people who speak Spanish. But if you don't, there are a whole bunch of language platforms where you can sit face to face with a native speaker and have a more so one-on-one conversation with them. And that is really where you'll do the most growing, because you can have that back-to-back dialogue with that person, and you're actually speaking with somebody who speaks the language and has learned the language from the very beginning. They will correct your errors and they will help you along the way. Feel free to look up language exchange platforms or language platforms where you can find a tutor. And also, really take advantage of that tutor. Don't just get on there, have a conversation. Really ask questions that you are feeling deeply about, and I'm sure they can answer your questions for you. They can give you tips on how to really pronounce a certain sound and things like that. To sound like a native, you need to listen, practice the accent, forget perfection, and practice with native speakers. If you keep these tips in mind, in no time you will be sounding like a native speaker. If and only if you found these tips helpful, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure you comment down below which language you're learning next. And like I always say, don't say I never told you anything, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye. Las cosquillas en mi estómago son insoportables. Lindas palabras, pero ya no son suficientes. Necesito hechos. Necesito que me demuestres que de verdad quieres estar conmigo. Estoy aprendiendo. Te incluí con mis amigos. ¿Qué más quieres que haga? Se ve tan vulnerable. Se ve tan vulnerable en estos momentos. Eso queda de tu parte. Estás acostumbrado a tener todo de manera fácil. صباح الخير، صباح النور، صباح الخير، صباح النور، صباح الخير، صباح الخير، صباح الخير، صباح الخير، صباح النور، صباح النور، صباح